Hello, District 3 Toastmasters. My name is Marianne Bjelke, and thank you so much for inviting me to share with your conference today. Before we dive into my presentation on communication, I wanted to acknowledge that this is the very first time I have delivered this presentation in a fully recorded state. I have given this live and I have given this virtually. Let me say I miss the opportunity to walk among everyone before going on stage, to get to know you. And when presenting, I really miss the opportunity to see your reactions in real time. So I promise, Scout's honor, I'm not a scout. So I promise, Scout's honor, even though I'm not a scout, but Scout's honor, that I will not do a lot of editing. Not too much editing. Maybe a little bit of editing. I promise to give you as authentic a presentation as I possibly can in recording. If you promise to forgive a few hiccups that we may have overlooked in a live presentation, but become glaringly obvious in a recorded version. My joy here today is to share with you how we can remove the obstacles to our communication when they're invisible to us, and perhaps give you some tips and tricks. I hope you get value from my presentation, and thank you again for inviting me. Hello, District 3 Toastmasters. Thank you for having me. I am Marianne Bjelke, your business communication strategist. And today, for the next 45 minutes, we are going to tackle obstacles in communication. If you took one look at my last name and said, "Be what now?" you are not alone. But when people ask me, "Be what?" I am going to say, be better. Let's be ready. And today, let's be better communicators. What do you say? Ladies and gentlemen, you were born to communicate. This is my son, Quinn, at the tender age of 1 year old. And before he ever spoke a word in his native language, he was just like you and I at that age, able to communicate happiness and fury, wants and desires, distaste, and love. We are creatures who communicate all the time, whether or not it is intentional. Today, we're going to talk about some of the factors in communication that may be posing obstacles for us to sticking our message with impact. We will be going over your communication style. Okay, I get it. It's a level 2 pathways program. We've all done it, I hope. If you haven't done it yet, it's a great program. I'm going to give you a little spin on it. We'll talk about generational influences, verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as your audience's learning style and how to find out what it is, whether your audience is 1, 10, 100, or more. Before I made a name for myself, albeit an unpronounceable one, my name was Paige Marie Matris. And here I am at 3 years old in my adoption picture. My foster parents, Loretta and Joe, which you can see there, Joe has the fantastic 70s mustache. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? Loretta Lombardi, amazing woman, entered the convent at 19 years old. Now, this is back when sisters could not leave the convent unless there was a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment. And when they did leave, they were wearing the full penguin suit, top to bottom, were in the company of another sister, and could not speak to anyone on the street. In her service to the church, she taught 5th grade math, and that is where she learned she had an even higher calling, to be a caregiver for children. So Loretta left the convent, eventually met and married my dad. Ooh, spoiler alert. They had 3 children of their own, my brothers Joe, Mike, and Paul, and then had 7 foster babies. Now that's in a row, not in a pile. Each baby was in their care for about a year until they either were adopted out or were returned to their natural parents. Now, I was the 7th child, and they kept me. And they asked my biological mother if she was going to put me up for adoption, please wait until I was 3 years old, because at that time in New York, where I'm from, there was a law on the books that if you were to adopt a foster child in your care, you had to wait until the child was 3 to begin the proceedings. My biological mother agreed. As a preparation for this, a social worker had to visit the house to make sure, naturally, that the baby was a good fit with the parents, that the house was a safe and nurturing place for the baby to be raised, and so on. Well, have you ever prepared for an event that you were very nervous about? If so, then you can imagine what my mother was going through. She is a clean woman to begin with, but from attic to basement, the entire house had to be sparkling, cobweb and dust speck free. Everyone had to wear their Sunday best, to be on their best behavior, to look impeccable. Hors d'oeuvres were served in our living room. Everything had to be perfect. Picture this. The social worker comes to visit, and there I am in the living room, 2 years old, not knowing what's going on. Okay. This is the story that has been told through my family year after year on the anniversary. Have you ever played peekaboo with a baby? Oh, where'd you go? Oh, I'm back. Object permanence, you know. Peekaboo. Oh no, where are you? Panic. Everything is okay. Keep that in mind. That's important in this story. The social worker comes in. My mom is in her Sunday best, giving the hors d'oeuvres. I'm sitting and playing, and my dad, who's been getting ready for this event upstairs, comes down and enters the living room, having chosen this day to shave his mustache. I take one look at the stranger advancing toward me and shriek in terror because I don't know who he is. With the help of internet cats, I want to share with you how this went down. My dad enters the room and I react. The social worker realizes something is wrong. My dad is unsure of what is happening, but is pretty sure that he's the cause of it and doesn't know why. And my mom, who's prepared for this day for months, knows exactly what went down. Now, before you get worried, we all know the story had a happy ending. But I'm sharing this story with you because even if we think we have communicated our intent and our desire for the final outcome and our message, there is always room for misinterpretation. Mom did not feel she had to say, Joe, today is not the day to shave your mustache. However, when Joe heard, everything has to be perfect, want you to look and be your best, he thought clean shaven was meeting that objective. So keep this in mind as we talk about what influences your communication. We have a path understanding your communication style. Now, as a refresher, those styles are direct, supportive, initiating, and analytical. You've been through this exercise, but we're going to go a little deeper as a recap. The different communication styles: if you are direct, you are decisive, competitive, results-oriented, independent, and confident. This is how you're perceived. This is how we think we are, how we come across with this communication style. Individuals who have a direct communication style tend to be seen as decisive and results-oriented. This is going to be your decision maker in a company or in an association or in a club. Supportive communication styles tend to be calm and approachable. These are our confidants. When we have something we need advice on, we will tend to seek out our supportive communication style friends and be there for others when we are supportive communicators. Initiating communicators are sociable and energetic, often very spontaneous. In a company, this can be your marketing team. This can be your sales team. On Instagram, this is your person who starts the meme. This is your person who gets the viral post going, the person who starts the party. And analytical, in your company, these are your accountants, your computer programmers, very precise, very exact, very data-driven in their analysis. Now, there are some red flags with each communication style. Just because we know what communication style we are and we embrace that, doesn't mean everyone else embraces our default communication style with the same ease that we do. So if you're a direct communicator, you might be seen as demanding or rude and a little impatient. Get to the point. I don't want any small talk. Just tell me what I need to know and let's move on. That's the direct communication style. For the supportive, may be seen as indecisive or resistant to change. Don't push me to make a decision because I want to support you, but I do need more information. I do need to have a big picture, and I don't want to make your decision for you. I don't want to project as a supportive communicator. I want you to arrive at that decision. The initiating may be seen as a little impulsive and attention-seeking. Hey, I want to get this party going. I want to start the energy. I want to bring up the energy in this room. Let's move. And I don't mean for all eyes to be on me, but if no one else is going to bring up the energy in this room as an initiating communication default style, then I am going to be the person who puts the spotlight on myself in an effort to help you tap into that energy. And as an analytical communicator, I may be seen as a little too cautious. I need more information. I don't have enough to go on where I'm confident in my decision. I think I'm missing information. So if I make a decision now and new information comes to light, I reserve the right to change that, to change my viewpoint on that. So consider these red flags when you are communicating, when you are embracing your default communication style. What is your default communication style? So if you're speaking to someone and you know what their communication style default is, we can refine our approach to make sure that our message hits with greater impact. When speaking to a direct communicator, you want to get to the point real quickly. You want to avoid over-explaining or repeating yourself and focus on the solution, not the problem. When you are talking to the supportive communicator, be calm, be steady, don't be panicked. Even though they are supportive in their style, they need support when you are communicating with them. And it would make sense, wouldn't it, that we like to communicate with others of the same style as we have. So when you're speaking to the supportive communicator, match their style. Okay? Allow time to consider all the options. To match the style of the initiating communicator, share stories, socialize first. I remember when I was leading a team of cross-functional members, we had marketing, we had customer service, we had programmers, and we had the decision makers, the money, all in the room at the same time. When we had the meeting, I had to invite the initiating, the marketing people 10 minutes earlier so they had a chance to get everything out of their system. And get that small talk out of the way. And then the direct communicators and the analytical communicators would come in 10 minutes late, but it bypassed all of the information that was a red flag for getting your message to hit for those communication styles, because they didn't have the patience for that. So when you're communicating with an initiating communication style, by all means, share that story about what happened in your day and allow them to share their stories as well. Listen with interest. For analytical, you want to offer those facts and figures. Be prepared to answer questions, because they will have questions from different perspectives, and be patient while they process that information. As the great Steve Martin knew, some people have a way with words and other people not have way. There is definitely a generation gap in communication, in the words you use. I don't know cursive and you don't know emoji, so I'd say that makes us even. It can feel a little odd when we don't understand what other people are saying, even when we speak the same language, can't it? It's hard because words have changed their meanings over time. For example, this is a printing press. If you are of a certain age, you may remember when these were in use. Before we had printers and digital means of replication, print on demand, the printing press was used to print books, and each letter had to be arranged on a page, covered in ink and paper, pressed to the printing press in order to print copies of a book. In the top portion, we had capital letters, of which there are fewer, numbers, and punctuation marks. And in the lower portion of the storage case, we have letters that are lowercase. This is where we get the terms uppercase letters that are capitalized were stored in the upper part of the case. When we use uppercase and lowercase in our conversation today, do we even ever think of this origin of that term? I know I don't. I was very surprised to learn this. What other words have a meaning to us that may have a completely different meaning to our listener? Well, here's where I want you to pull out that handout or get a piece of paper, but I want you to keep your answer to the next question to yourself until the big reveal. This is a symbol. When you see the symbol, what is the term you use to refer to it? I'll give you a minute. We see the symbol every day. Did you say that you call this symbol a number sign, as in we're number 1, or a number 2 pencil? Did you say this is a pound sign, as in please enter your caller ID and then hit pound, or enter your account number and then hit pound? We've all been on that phone call. Is it a hashtag? On social media, hashtag is how social media posts are indexed. They allow us to search on the hashtag term to bring up any post that also includes that hashtag term. If you're a musician, you may have looked at this symbol and said, this is a sharp. When I'm reading music and I'm playing my instrument, this is how I know how to adjust certain notes throughout a piece of music. If you're a programmer or a web designer in digital media, you may have called this a hex sign. For those who don't know, every color on your computer has a 6-character alphanumeric, a mix of letters and numbers, code that tells your computer what color to display, and it's preceded by the symbol, and it's called a hex. But I want you to take heart, no matter what you chose. And I've had some people say, hey, it's tic-tac-toe. No matter what term that you use to identify this symbol, I want you to take heart in that you are wrong. You're right. But the true term for this symbol is octothorpe. Octothorpe, which makes a fantastic word of the day in your club if you are a grammarian that likes to throw down a gauntlet and really challenge your club members to struggle to use a word of a day. Octothorpe is your word. You are welcome. But octothorpe is the only term for this symbol that is not context dependent. Okay. Number sign is context dependent. Pound sign is for a call or a keypad. Hashtag is for social media. Hex is for digital medium and color coding. Sharp is for music. Okay? Even tic-tac-toe is for the game. Okay? Number has a number in front of it. This is number 1, number 2, number 3. It's ranking. Octothorpe is the only term that describes this. So you're welcome. Another term for you. If you're speaking to someone across generations and you say, oh, it's a pound sign instead of a hashtag, you have introduced obstacle to your message being received. Because if your audience, who's been on social media their entire lives, knows this as a hashtag by default, any other term that you use with them for the symbol, for example, is going to set you apart as not being fully connected with them. Be aware to have the greatest impact with your message, match the language of your audience. Side note, this is kind of why it's really difficult to give this presentation as a recording, District 3, because I cannot see your reaction with this. I'm trusting that you are getting value out of this, and that the points I'm making about these words may cause you to think of some of the vocabulary you might use and take as default that your audience may not see from the same perspective. I tell my clients when we're going through their presentations and addressing perspectives, there is a teacup on the table between us. And I can tell you the handle is on the right when you can clearly see it's on the left. That's the approach to take in choosing our words and how to frame our message. What I'd like to do now is show you a 9-minute video from BuzzFeed. This video, it's a bit trendy, but let's watch this 9-minute BuzzFeed video together. Learn about the generations, and then take a dive into how to increase the impact of our message when we know our audience has been framed by the factors of a specific generation. That was something else, wasn't it? The first time I saw that, I wasn't quite sure how to react. There are some depictions of generations that did make me a little uncomfortable, made me raise an eyebrow, but I could not deny that the information in this video is excellent, it's solid, and it's accurate. On your handout, you will see you have this as well if you'd like to take notes. And I also have a workbook that's available. Anyone here who wants it, please feel free. Just email me, marianne@bewhatnow.com. To that, I don't have a newsletter. I'm not signing you up to receive a whole lot of spam email. I encourage you to email me for this book. On your handout, you'll see this breakdown of 5 generations that we had looked at for you to take notes. If I want to send my message to someone in the silent generation, my most impactful mode is face-to-face communication. Because let's face it, face-to-face communication is the most effective form of communication that there is. Because you can read someone's body language, you can gauge their reaction in real time. And again, these are broad generalizations. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. But if you are in the silent generation, chances are you will find face-to-face communication to be the most effective form of communication. If you are part of the boomer generation, as boomers, you know that phone calls are the most effective form of communication. Of course it is. You don't have to travel anywhere to meet someone face to face. You can still gauge some real-time reactions in vocal tone. And when your phone call is done, you can get immediately back to the next thing on your agenda without having to worry about all that delay with travel. It's much more efficient than face-to-face. But if you're Generation X, you know that email is the most efficient form of communication. As Gen X, we like to take time and give you sometimes far too much backstory, but to frame everything in full context, email allows us to consider our response, avoiding any sort of real-time delay, any sort of real-time uncertainty that might happen in face-to-face or phone call. Now, let me just say here too, this is the delineation point where if you put 2 spaces after a period, you are Gen X boomer silent generation. You're in the generation cut to the left of this particular diagram. And if from this cut to the right sees 2 spaces after a period, they know exactly how old you are. They know exactly where you're coming from. And I get it. I get it. I was in typing class. We had it drilled into us, 2 spaces after a period on our manual typewriters. But guess what? We really don't need to do it today. And I was ready to die on that hill for a long time to keep my 2 spaces after a period, but let me entreat you. It's time we can let it go. The new technology of digital fonts makes it so that the spacing after a period is proper. It's correct. It no longer needs us to make up for some mechanical default of the old typewriter. So if you're in Gen X boomer silent generation like me, let's let it go. It's okay. I even find I have to do a search and replace when I write, if I'm writing an article or a proposal, to get rid of all the 2 spaces after a period because it's habitual. But it is worth your while, and you will find that even subconsciously, by including that, some of your audience will phase out. They'll just zone out and they won't take what you're saying as much to heart because they're distracted by the 2 space after the period thing. Whether, and you might have been in the camp where you're saying, no, I will never let go of my 2 spaces after a period. Okay, you can choose to die on that hill. I'm just saying, please consider, if you've distracted the person to whom you're sending the message, then you've reduced the efficiency of your message sticking. All I'm saying. Okay, Soapbox over. Thank you. Moving on to the Millennial Generation. Hey, texting, we know, is the most efficient form of communication. Why? Because I don't need a wall of text, Gen Xer, to get the point of the communication. I can understand in a few words and move on with my day because there's a lot more on my agenda than I think is on other people's agenda when I'm a millennial. And if I am on my phone, which is never more than 6 feet away from me, my entire time having a phone, I am searching for answers. This is not only my communication, it's my connection. It's my social interaction. It's my entertainment device. It is all things. So I want to be able to look up, to find the answer to a question, and to convey that via text as quickly as possible. We don't need to have a phone call. We don't need to have a long email about it, and we don't need to be face-to-face. If I have effectively communicated with you via you don't have to sign them. Some people sign their name to text. You don't need to do that. You don't need to put a period at the end. You can put a question mark, sure. Use emojis and that laugh, cry emoji. Now Gen Z's on the picture. They are given grief about the emojis. Ha ha ha. Which emojis are in and which emojis are out. So Generation Z also has their phone with them all the time, and the best form of communication for Generation Z is, believe it or not, face-to-face communication. Why? Well, yes, the phone is typically in hand, the screen is typically in hand, present, but unlike the Millennial Generation, where this was a form of connection, for Gen Z, this was a form of entertainment and distraction. I'm watching my YouTube videos, I'm watching TikTok, I'm watching Netflix, Disney Plus, any of the streaming media that's there. So a phone call is an interruption. Email is an interruption. Text is an interruption. So face-to-face, our 20-somethings who are just entering the workplace, we're starting to interact with them, face-to-face is the most effective form of communication for this group. I think that these are tips that you can start using right after this presentation, and you will find that you get a better response from your listener if they fall into the specific generation category and you're using the mode that is most efficient to them. There's more than just communication style and generation that impacts how we receive our information. There's also learning styles. And you may have heard of the visual, audio, and kinesthetic learning styles. These are the big three. There are plenty of other systems out there that will show more learning styles. We'll drill down a little bit, but I'm only going to focus on these three right now. Visual, audio, and kinesthetic. Visual learners learn by seeing. Video is a fantastic way for them to observe. Watching someone do something. If you're in the garage with dad as a kid and you're watching him repair the car, and then you went on to repair cars yourself, that's typical. Visual kicking off that learning. If you had to have your hands on the wrench on the engine in order to learn, that's kinesthetic. You learn by doing. And audio, you learn by hearing, which, believe it or not, includes reading. You might think that reading would be in the visual learner category. And sure, for some it is. Again, sweeping generalizations, and there are always exceptions to these rules. Many readers, as we're reading, hear what we're reading in our own minds. And that's why it can tap into the audio learner and be as effective for the audio learner as it is for the visual learner. How can you tell if someone is visual, audio, or kinesthetic learner? If you are a visual learner, you will tend to use words that align with receiving information visually as your dominant form. The same is true if you're an audio learner. You will use words that align with being an audio learner. And if you are a kinesthetic learner, you will use words that align. What do I mean by that? Let's say that you are explaining your plan. We're moving the club meeting from in-person to online, and when we go back, we're going to move the meeting to hybrid for a while to see if we can make that work. And here's how we're going to do that. Your visual learner, upon hearing your plan, may respond, oh, I think that looks good. Your plan looks good to me. Okay? I see what you're trying to do. Those words, look and see, indicate chances are that person is a visual learner. By extension, your audio learner may respond, oh, that sounds like a good plan. I hear what you're saying. These words tip off that this is someone who learns dominantly by hearing. And the kinesthetic learner is trying to grasp your idea. It feels like the way to go. Okay, I get it. I get it. Listening to the words that your listener uses can be an indicator of what the dominant learning style is. And once you know their dominant learning styles, you can tailor your message to include more of those terms that align with their learning style and effectively include the mode. For my kinesthetic learners in an audience, I have a handout. You want to write, you want to take notes. For my visual learners, we have a presentation. For my audio learners, we have also some video with a music underlie that kind of shakes up the audio portion of it, and the sound of my voice, the speaking that goes along with all of this. When you are presenting, it goes without saying, you will have all types of learners, all types of communication styles, and all generations in your audience. Make sure that your presentation has some component in it that appeals to each of those styles, and you will exponentially increase your impact for every speech, every presentation, every communication. Again, whether it's communicating to 1, to 10, or to 100 or more, these same rules will apply. As I showed a picture of my son earlier in this presentation when he was the ripe old age of 1 year old. Well, today he is 12 here, and he is just the highlight of my life, the love of my life. Gen Z, he's very visual, he's very analytical, and I've had to learn how to phrase my message to talk to him in a way that makes sure we're close, that makes sure I'm not introducing anything that makes him roll his eyes, because when my boy rolls his eyes, he does it so dramatically, you can practically hear it from down the hall. And I really, as a mom, I want to avoid those as much as possible. But the words that we use have an impact. And I want to close by saying sometimes the words that we use have an impact we will never know that we had. I was so happy when I had my own son because it was my first time having a family member who was a blood member, blood relative, right? Imagine that. Of course, grew up adopted, my family for sure, but I'd never known the bond of a blood relationship. And back when I was 21, I found and reunited with my biological mother, okay? When the Lombardis asked her to wait to put me up for adoption, the last words she said to me, as I later learned, were, "Come find me." When I was 21, I went and found her, and we caught up on a lot of missed communication. My adoptive family, who is my family, embraced her, and we look. I can't tell this without getting emotional, and I'm not going to edit this part. Do you think that baby understood "come find me"? The words that were used? I don't think so. It didn't. But the emotion behind our words is felt by our listener, whether we want it to be or not. So let me close with saying, choose your words with love and with care, and you will have a greater impact on your audience. District 3, thank you so much for having me here today. Again, my name is Marianne Bjelke. If you would like a copy of my free ebook on this, please just email me at marianne@bewhatnow.com, and I will happily send you this ebook. Just put Communication Toastmasters in the subject line, and I'll send you the ebook